HFY's claws clicked nervously against the smooth metal surface of the archive terminal. The young Keth Mori had been working in the deep storage vaults of Nexus Prime for only 3 months, but he had never seen files like these before. The data crystals were old, so old that they required special readers just to access them. The first file made him pause. It was marked with symbols he didn't recognize, and a warning label that translated roughly to restricted, council eyes only. His curiosity got the better of him. After all, these files were thousands of years old. What harm could there be in looking? The screen flickered to life, showing a map of the galaxy. Most of it looked familiar, but there was something wrong. A large section near the outer rim was marked in red, with warnings written in multiple languages. The area was labeled Terran Quarantine Zone. Do not approach. Sleeping Deathworlders within. HFY's translator struggled with some of the older languages, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone, or something, had been locked away in that part of space. His scales shifted color with excitement as he dug deeper into the files. The records spoke of creatures called humans, who lived on a world called Earth. The descriptions seemed impossible. According to the files, these beings could survive in almost any environment. They could eat nearly anything. They learned faster than any known species. Most terrifying of all, they never gave up, no matter how hopeless their situation became. One report made HFY's blood run cold. It described a human ship that had been damaged in battle, with most of its crew dead. Instead of surrendering, the remaining humans had turned their dying ship into a weapon, ramming it into an enemy fleet and destroying 12 vessels. The report's author seemed shocked that anyone would choose such a fate. Another file contained what appeared to be a peace treaty. The terms were strange. The humans had agreed to enter something called the Great Sleep, in exchange for the other species leaving their territory alone. The treaty was signed by representatives from dozens of worlds, all agreeing to maintain a quarantine around the human systems. HFY was so absorbed in the files that he didn't notice Elder Counselor Vexhai approaching until the older Keth Mori's shadow fell across his workstation. Young archivist, Vexhai's voice carried the weight of centuries. What have you found that interests you so much? HFY's scales flushed with embarrassment. Forgive me, Elder. I discovered some old files about something called the Terran Quarantine Zone. The records speak of dangerous creatures that had to be contained. Vexhai's eyes narrowed as he looked at the screen. A sound escaped him that might have been laughter. Ah, the old human myths. I remember hearing stories about them when I was your age. Myths? HFY asked. Of course. Vexhai waved a dismissive hand. Think about it, young one. The records claim these humans were so dangerous that the entire galaxy had to work together to contain them. Does that sound possible to you? HFY considered this. The galaxy was currently ruled by 3 great powers. The Keth Mori Empire, with their advanced mental abilities, the Vex Terran Collective, masters of technology, and the Zarn, hegemony, whose military might was unmatched. The idea that anything could threaten all 3 seemed impossible. But the quarantine zone still exists, HFY pointed out. I checked the current star charts. That entire region is marked as a navigation hazard. Exactly, Vexhai nodded. A navigation hazard. Dead space. The humans, if they ever really existed, are long gone. What you're reading are probably stories made up to explain why that region of space is empty. HFY wanted to argue. But Vexhai was an elder counselor. His wisdom was respected across the empire. Still, something about the files felt too detailed, too specific to be mere stories. The files mention something called the Great Sleep, HFY said carefully. What if they're not dead, but just sleeping? This time Vexhai did laugh. Sleeping for 10,000 years? Come now, young archivist. No species can survive that long without being active. Even if they somehow could, They would wake up to find the galaxy has moved on without them. We have fleets that could destroy entire star systems. We have technology they couldn't even dream of. What could a handful of primitives do against the combined might of the three powers? HFY nodded, but something still bothered him. Elder, why are the warning beacons around the quarantine zone still active after all this time? HFY paused. Warning beacons? Yes, Elder. According to the current navigation charts, there are automated beacons around the entire zone, broadcasting warnings in multiple languages. They've been active for 10,000 years. For a moment, HFY looked uncertain. Then he shook his head. Probably just old automated systems that no one has bothered to shut down. The bureaucracy. Move slowly, young one. I'm sure someone will get around to decommissioning them eventually. As HFY walked away, HFY turned back to the files. Something in the elder's voice had changed when he mentioned the beacons. Maybe it was nothing, but HFY decided to do some more research. He pulled up the current sensor readings from the quarantine zone. What he saw made his scales turn pale. 3 of the warning beacons had gone silent in the past year. Their power cores, designed to last 10,000 years, were finally failing. Deep in the restricted files, HFY found one last document. It was a personal log from an ancient Kethmori military commander. The final entry read, "The humans have agreed to sleep, but they made us promise something in return. We must never forget why they chose to do this. We must never forget what happens when they wake up angry." HFY stared at the screen for a long time. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible thought was forming. What if the humans hadn't been contained because they were dangerous? What if they had chosen to sleep because they were too dangerous? And what if, after 10,000 years of peace, the galaxy had forgotten the difference? Captain Xanthor of the Zarn hegemony had been patrolling the outer edges of known space for 15 years. It was boring work, but someone had to watch for pirates and smugglers trying to use the empty regions to hide their activities. The dead zone they called the Sol system was just another stretch of nothing on his patrol route. That's why the energy readings made no sense. "Censor officer," Xanthor growled, his voice echoing in the bridge of the Time's relentless claw asterisk. "Run. Another scan of grid. 7. Alpha." "Already running it, Captain," came the nervous reply. "The readings are unusual." Xanthor moved to look over the younger Zarn's shoulder. What he saw on the screen made his warrior's instincts scream danger. Massive energy signatures were coming from the supposedly dead system. Not just a few scattered signals, but hundreds of them, growing stronger by the hour. "Could be solar activity," the sensor officer suggested hopefully. "Solar activity doesn't create geometric patterns," Xanthor pointed at the screen. The energy sources were arranged in perfect formations around each planet in the system. This was artificial. This was controlled. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Xanthor ordered. "Tell them we have unknown contacts in the quarantine zone." While his crew worked, Xanthor stared at the readings. In his 30 years of service, he had never seen energy signatures like these. They were too organized, too purposeful. Something was waking up in that dead system. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen Okafor opened her eyes for the first time in 10,000 years. The stasis pod systems hummed quietly as they brought her body back to full function. Around her, thousands of other pods were beginning the same process. Her augmented mind immediately connected to the vast network that had watched over humanity during their long sleep. Information flowed into her consciousness like water into a dry riverbed. The AIs had been busy. "Status report," she whispered, her voice still rough from the long sleep. "Awakening protocol initiated 6 hours ago," the AI's voice spoke directly into her mind. "Cause: failure of perimeter warning systems. Galactic threat assessment complete. 3 major hostile civilizations detected. Unknown technology levels. Defensive measures authorized. Sarah's eyes widened. Hostile civilizations? When humanity had entered the Great Sleep, they had done so voluntarily, hoping to give the galaxy time to mature and grow peaceful. The idea that new threats had emerged was troubling. "Show me," she said. Data streamed into her mind. The galaxy had indeed changed. 3 powerful empires now ruled most of known space. The Keth Mori, with their mental abilities. The Vex Taran, masters of technology. The Zarn, a warrior species that had conquered dozens of worlds. But most disturbing were the reports of how they treated other species. Entire civilizations had been enslaved or destroyed. Worlds had been stripped of resources. The peace that humanity had hoped to preserve by sleeping had never come. "How many are awake?" Sarah asked. "Currently, 12,000 across all facilities. Awakening will continue for the next 72 hours until full population is restored." Sarah nodded and began the process of getting out of her pod. Her body felt strange after so long in stasis, but her augmented systems quickly compensated. Around her, other humans were beginning to stir. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, diplomats, all the people who had volunteered to sleep so the galaxy could have peace. "Dr. Chenokafor," another voice spoke in her mind. This one belonged to Admiral Marcus Singh, the last military commander to enter stasis, and apparently, the first to wake. "We need to talk." Sarah made her way through the vast underground complex that had housed humanity during their sleep. The corridors were clean and well-maintained, thanks to the AI servants who had never slept. As she walked, she could see other humans beginning to emerge from their pods, all looking as confused as she felt. Admiral Singh was waiting for her in what had once been the command center. The man looked exactly as he had 10,000 years ago, though Sarah could see the weight of command already settling on his shoulders again. "The AIs have been busy while we slept," he said without preamble. "Take a look." The screens around them came to life, showing the solar system as it was now. Sarah gasped. Mercury had been completely transformed into what looked like a massive shipyard. Venus was covered with manufacturing facilities. Mars housed training complexes where AI soldiers had been running combat simulations for millennia. "They never stopped preparing," Singh explained. "While we slept, they kept working, kept learning, kept building. They've been ready for this day since the moment we closed our eyes." "Ready for what?" Sarah asked. "War?" Singh's voice was grim. "The galaxy we hope to preserve doesn't exist. These 3 empires have turned it into exactly what we feared it would become. The question now is, what do we do about it?" Sarah looked at the screens showing their transformed system. Humanity had entered the Great Sleep as a gift to the galaxy, a chance for other species to grow and learn without human interference. But the galaxy had wasted that gift. "The AIs," she said slowly. "What do they recommend?" "They've run millions of simulations," Singh replied. "Every peaceful solution ends with humanity being destroyed and the galaxy continuing on its current path. Every scenario where we reveal ourselves gradually results in the 3 empires uniting against us. And if we don't reveal ourselves, then the galaxy continues to burn while we hide in our system, and eventually someone discovers us anyway." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision that faced them. Humanity had tried to give the galaxy peace by removing themselves from it. But peace couldn't be given. It had to be earned, and the galaxy had chosen war instead. "How long until everyone is awake?" she asked. 72 hours for full awakening, but we have enough people active now to begin preliminary operations." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at the screens again. Somewhere out there, Captain Xanthor was watching their system and reporting back to his superiors. Soon, the 3 empires would know that humanity was awake. "Then we prepare," she said. "But we do this right. We're not the monsters they'll try to paint us as." Singh nodded. The AIs have already begun moving our ships into position. When the galaxy comes looking for us, we'll be ready. And losens, thanks for watching. And losens subscribers perdix mangris. And lessons subscribers into one heading to RI. Sing nodded. And lessons about abided. Thanks for watching. And lessons about abided. And as if summoned by his words, alarms began to sound throughout the facility. On the screens, they could see ships approaching their system. Not many, just a small scouting force. But it was beginning. Contact, Singh said quietly. It seems our wake-up call has been noticed. Sarah watched the approaching ships and felt something she hadn't experienced in 10,000 years. The familiar mixture of sadness and determination that came when humanity realized they would have to fight again. They had slept for 10 millennia, hoping the galaxy would learn to be peaceful without them. Instead, it had forgotten why peace was necessary in the first place. Now they would have to remind it. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Times Endurance *, humanity's first ship to leave the Sol system in 10,000 years. The vessel looked deceptively simple from the outside, but every system had been rebuilt and improved during humanity's long sleep. Contact bearing 2-7 Mark IV, her sensor officer reported. Zarn configuration. Heavy cruiser class. Elena nodded calmly. They had expected this. The moment humanity began awakening, their AI systems had detected the patrol ship watching their system. Now that ship was approaching, likely trying to determine what the strange energy readings meant. Open a channel, Elena ordered. Let's see if we can do this peacefully. The screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Zarn vessel. Captain Xanthor sat in his command chair. Every inch the proud warrior. His species was impressive. Tall, strong, with natural armor-like skin and predatory instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. Unknown vessel, Xanthor's voice was commanding. You are in violation of the quarantine zone. Identify yourself immediately. Elena stepped forward, her hands clearly visible and empty. Captain, my name is Commander Elena Vasquez of the Earthship Times Endurance *. We are humans, and we're returning to active space after a long period of isolation. Xanthor's expression changed from confusion to disbelief to something approaching fear. Impossible. The humans are myths, stories to frighten children. I assure you, Captain, we are quite real. Elena said gently. We entered voluntary stasis 10,000 years ago to allow the galaxy time to develop peacefully. We're awakening now because our monitoring systems detected that this peace has not been achieved. Voluntary stasis? Xanthor laughed, but there was no humor in it. No species can survive 10,000 years of stasis. You're either lying or delusional. Elena sighed. She had hoped this would go differently. Captain, I don't wish to fight you. Perhaps we could arrange a peaceful meeting? Your government could send representatives, and we could discuss. Enough, Xanthor roared. I don't know what you are or where you came from, but you will submit to inspection and interrogation. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Captain, please reconsider. Elena tried one more time. We have no desire for conflict. You have no choice in the matter. Xanthor activated his weapon systems. This is your final warning. Submit or be destroyed. Elena looked at her crew. They all wore the same expression of sad resignation. They had tried. Computer, how long to disable their vessel without causing casualties? 4.7 seconds, Commander, the AI responded. Do it. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy for years to come. The Zarn ship's weapons fired first. Particle beams that could punch through a kilometer of solid metal. They struck the Times Endurance Times and simply stopped. The human ship's shields didn't even flicker. At the same time, every system on the Zarn vessel simply stopped working. Weapons, engines, life support. Communications. Everything went offline, in perfect sequence. The ship hung dead in space, its crew trapped but unharmed. Elena's voice came over the Zarn ship's emergency speakers, somehow bypassing their dead communication system. Captain Zonthor, your crew is in no danger. We've simply disabled your ship's systems. You'll find emergency life support is still functioning. Better. On his bridge, Zonthor stared at his dead control panels in shock. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. The human ship had disabled his vessel without apparent effort, penetrating every defense, bypassing every safeguard. How? He whispered. Captain. Elena's voice was patient, almost kind. We've been preparing for this day for 10,000 years. During our sleep, our artificial intelligence systems continued to develop and improve our technology. We know how your ships work, because we've been studying your transmissions for decades. That's impossible, Zonthor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Your ship's main computer is based on quantum crystalline matrices, isn't it? Third-generation Vex Terran design, modified for military use. Your shields use rotating harmonic frequencies to deflect energy weapons. Your engines create subspace distortion fields for faster-than-light travel. Xanthor's blood ran cold. Everything she said was classified military information. We've been listening, Captain, Elena continued. For 10,000 years, we've been watching and learning. We hoped we wouldn't need to use this knowledge, but the galaxy has forced our hand. Across the galaxy, word of the encounter spread quickly. The Zarn hegemony's most advanced warship had been disabled by a single unknown vessel in less than 5 seconds. Panic began to spread through the military commands of all three empires. The Kethmori were the first to attempt contact. A diplomatic ship approached the Sol system, broadcasting peaceful intentions. When they established communication with the humans, they immediately tried their most powerful mental influence techniques. The human diplomat they spoke with, Dr. Sarah Chen Okafor, listened politely to their telepathic commands and then smiled sadly. I'm sorry, but your mental abilities don't work on us anymore. 10,000 years of integration with artificial intelligence has changed how our minds work. The Kethmori ambassador's confidence crumbled. Their entire civilization was built on their ability to influence other species mentally. If the humans were immune, the Vex Terran Collective took a more direct approach. Their best hackers and AI specialists attempted to infiltrate human computer systems. What they found defied understanding. The human networks weren't just protected, they were alive in a way that made no sense. Every attempt to break in was not just blocked, but turned back on itself. Within hours of trying to hack human systems, the Vex Terran found their own networks compromised. Nothing was damaged, nothing was stolen. But the message was clear. The humans could have taken control of everything if they had wanted to. On Nexus Prime, Elder Counselor Vex High stared at the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Every contact with the humans had ended the same way. Total technological and tactical superiority demonstrated with almost casual ease. Young Zephi appeared at his side, holding a data crystal. Elder, the young archivist said quietly, I found something else in the old files. A technical report from the last war, before the humans entered stasis. Vex High took the crystal with trembling hands. The report was brief but terrifying. In their final conflict, humans had faced an alliance of 17 different species. The war had lasted exactly 6 months. The humans had won so decisively that their enemies had begged for mercy. But the most terrifying part wasn't the humans' victory. It was what they had done afterward. Instead of enslaving their enemies or taking their worlds, the humans had helped them rebuild. They had shared technology, provided aid, and then politely suggested that perhaps it would be better for everyone if humanity withdrew from galactic politics for a while. They didn't enter stasis because they were defeated, HFY said softly. They entered stasis because they were too good at winning. HFY set down the crystal and looked at the reports of humanity's awakening. 3 ships. They had sent exactly 3 ships out of their system, and the entire galaxy was in panic. What have we done? He whispered. On the bridge of the Times, Endurance *. Elena received reports from her sister ships. Contact with all 3 major powers had been established. All 3 had attempted to assert dominance. All 3 had been gently but firmly shown the futility of such attempts. Orders from Earth, Commander, her communications officer reported. Admiral Singh wants all ships to return to Seoul. We're to prepare for visitors. Vine 1. Elena nodded. They had made their point. Now came the hard part. Trying to fix a galaxy that had spent 10,000 years learning all the wrong lessons about power and peace. Take us home, she said. It's time for the grown-ups to have a talk. The emergency meeting of the 3 powers was held in deep space, far from any inhabited world. The leaders of the Kethmori Empire, the Vex Taran Collective, and the Zarn Hegemony had never agreed on anything before. But the return of humanity had changed that. Supreme Commander Kethvar of the Kethmori spoke first, his mental voice carrying waves of barely controlled fear. The humans are exactly what the old records claimed. They are too dangerous to exist. High Processor Vex 9 of the Collective agreed, its mechanical voice flat and emotionless. Analysis confirms. Human technology has advanced beyond our ability to counter. They represent an extinction-level threat to our civilizations. War leader Zarnthok slammed his fist on the table. Then we destroy them now, while they're still few in number. Every moment we delay makes them stronger. Agreed, Kethvar said. We have no choice. The humans must be eliminated before they can spread beyond their system. And so, for the first time in galactic history, the 3 powers put aside their differences and united for a single purpose. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier from all 3 empires was committed to one goal: the complete destruction of humanity. The combined fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. Over 10,000 warships, carrying weapons that could destroy planets. The pride of 3 civilizations, representing centuries of technological advancement and military doctrine. Admiral Marcus Singh watched them come from the command center deep beneath Earth's surface. The detection systems that had watched over humanity during their sleep tracked every ship, analyzed every weapon, and calculated threat levels with cold precision. They're really going to try it, Dr. Chen Okafor said softly. After everything we've shown them, they still think violence is the answer. 10,000 years, Singh replied sadly. 10,000 years, and they've learned nothing. Around them, the command center came alive with activity. But these weren't just human operators. They were human-AI partnerships. Minds enhanced and accelerated beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each person could process information and make decisions at superhuman speed. Sir, one of the technicians reported, the enemy fleet will reach the outer system in 6 hours. Singh nodded. Then it's time to show them what we've really been doing during our sleep. Activate all defensive platforms. Across the Sol system, structures that had been mistaken for space debris or natural formations suddenly came online. Asteroids revealed themselves to be massive weapon platforms. What appeared to be solar collectors were actually shield generators. The entire system had been turned into one enormous fortress during humanity's slumber. But that wasn't the most shocking revelation. Sir, the technician continued, Mercury shipyards report ready. They're asking how many ships you want them to deploy. Singh considered this. The fleet approaching them was massive, but it was still thinking in terms of traditional warfare. They expected to fight human ships with human crews, using tactics and strategies they understood. They were about to learn how wrong they were. All of them, Singh said quietly. The surface of Mercury split open like a flower blooming. What emerged defied description. Thousands upon thousands of ships, but not like anything the galaxy had ever seen. These were vessels designed by artificial minds that had spent 10 millennia studying every aspect of space combat. Some ships were no larger than fighters but carried weapons that could destroy cruisers. Others were massive constructs that seemed to bend space around themselves. All of them moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single vast organism. The first contact came at the edge of the system. The vanguard of the Galactic Fleet, a force of 500 ships that would have been considered unstoppable by any previous standard, encountered a single human vessel. The human ship didn't fire a shot. It didn't need to. Instead, it transmitted something. A signal. A code. A pattern of information that the galactic ship's computers couldn't resist analyzing. Within seconds, every ship in the vanguard found its systems compromised, not damaged, not destroyed, simply convinced that fighting was not in their best interest. 500 ships, the pride of 3 empires, simply stopped fighting and broadcast surrender messages. War leader Zarnthok watched in horror from the command ship of the main fleet. How is this possible? They're using our own ships against us. It's not possible, High Processor Vex 9 insisted, but its voice carried uncertainty for the first time in its existence. No technology can subvert our systems so completely. Supreme Commander Kethvar tried to use his mental abilities to coordinate the fleet, but found his thoughts somehow clouded, confused. The humans weren't just fighting their ships. They were fighting their minds, their very ability to wage war. The main engagement was over before it truly began. Humanity didn't destroy the galactic fleet. That would have been wasteful and cruel. Instead, they did something far more devastating. They made it irrelevant. Every tactic the combined fleet tried, the humans had already predicted and prepared for. Every weapon they fired was neutralized or redirected. Every formation they used was countered perfectly. It was as if the humans knew what their enemies would do before their enemies knew it themselves. And perhaps they did. 10,000 years of AI analysis had studied every possible form of warfare, every tactical doctrine, every strategic philosophy that thinking beings could develop. The humans weren't just fighting with superior technology. They were fighting with perfect understanding of their opponents. On Earth, Singh watched the battle with no satisfaction, only sadness. End it, he ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the most decisive moment in galactic history. Every ship in the combined fleet simply stopped. Not destroyed, not damaged, just politely but firmly informed that they were no longer capable of fighting. The humans had demonstrated something that chilled the galaxy to its core. They could end any conflict, against any opponent, at any time they chose. The only reason anyone was still alive was because humanity allowed it. In his command ship, Zarnthok stared at his dead weapons panels and realized the terrible truth. The humans hadn't been contained in that quarantine zone. They had contained themselves. And now they were awake. And the galaxy had just tried to destroy them. "What have we done?" he whispered. The answer came from every speaker, on every ship, in the fleet. Admiral Singh's voice was calm, measured, and infinitely patient. "You have shown us that the galaxy has not learned the lessons we hoped it would during our absence. You have proven that when faced with something you don't understand, your first instinct is still to destroy it. This is why we slept. This is why we hoped you would grow beyond such thinking." On the surface of Earth, Singh stood looking up at the stars through the transparent dome of the command center. Around him, his staff worked to coordinate the aftermath of the battle that wasn't really a battle. "Sir," Dr. Chen Okafor approached him, "we're receiving surrender messages from all 3 empires. They want to negotiate terms." Singh nodded slowly. "Then, we'd better give them terms they can live with." Literally. He turned to face his staff. And for a moment, They could see the weight of 10,000 years in his eyes. They had awakened to find a galaxy that had learned nothing from their sacrifice. But perhaps it wasn't too late to teach those lessons now. "Prepare the conference room," he said. "It's time for the children to learn why the adults went to sleep." Outside, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what humanity would do with the power they had just demonstrated. The answer would reshape everything. 6 months had passed since the day the galaxy learned why humanity had chosen to sleep. The great conference hall on Nexus Prime had been rebuilt to accommodate representatives from every known species, not just the 3 former powers. For the first time in galactic history, everyone had a voice. Dr. Sarah Chen Okafor sat at the center of it all, not as a conqueror or ruler, but as something the galaxy had never had before: a teacher. Around her sat the leaders of civilizations both great and small, all learning to navigate this new reality where might did not make right. Elder Counselor Vex High, once so certain of his people's superiority, now listened carefully as Sarah explained the concept of cooperative governance. His mental abilities, once used to dominate others, were being retrained to help facilitate understanding between species with very different ways of thinking. The Keth Mori gift for mental connection, Sarah was saying, could be used to help species understand each other better, not to control them. Imagine if instead of imposing your will on others, you used your abilities to help them express their own thoughts more clearly. High Processor Vex 9 of the collective had undergone the most dramatic change. Its rigid, mechanical thinking had been expanded through careful integration with human AI technology. It now spoke with something approaching wonder about concepts it had never been able to process before. Creativity, intuition, the value of imperfection. "We have begun to understand," Vex 9 said, its voice carrying new harmonics of emotion, "that our pursuit of perfect efficiency was actually highly inefficient. By suppressing the chaos of organic thought, we were eliminating the very source of innovation and growth." War leader Zarnthok had perhaps the hardest adjustment to make. His entire species was built around concepts of honor through combat, strength through dominance. But the humans had shown him something his people had never considered. There were forms of strength that didn't require defeating others. "My warriors are learning new ways to test themselves," he reported to the assembly. "Instead of conquering weaker species, they protect them. Instead of proving their strength by destroying, they prove it by building. The honor they find in this is different, but perhaps greater than what they knew before." Sarah nodded approvingly. The changes weren't just happening at the leadership level. Across the galaxy, entire civilizations were being transformed by humanity's gentle guidance. The Velnari, a species that had been enslaved by the Keth Mori for centuries, were now free and learning to govern themselves. Human advisors helped them develop their own technologies and political systems, never imposing human solutions but helping them find their own paths. The Thrix, whose worlds had been strip-mined by the Vex Terran, were working with human environmental teams to heal their damaged ecosystems. The humans shared technology freely, but more importantly, they shared knowledge of how different species could work together to solve problems. Young Zeph High, no longer just an archivist but now Earth's cultural liaison to the Keth Mori, stood to address the assembly. His scales had taken on new colors of confidence and hope. 6 months ago, he said, I found files that spoke of sleeping Deathworlders who were too dangerous to wake. I thought this meant they were monsters who would destroy us all. He paused, looking around the room at representatives of dozens of species, all working together in ways that would have been impossible before humanity's awakening. I was wrong, he continued. They weren't too dangerous to wake because they would destroy us. They were too dangerous to wake because they would change everything we thought we knew about power, about civilization, about what it means to be strong. Commander Elena Vasquez, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, smiled at the young Keth Mori's words. The transformation of the galaxy had been faster and more complete than anyone had dared hope. But it wasn't without challenges. Not everyone has embraced these changes, she reported to the assembly. There are still groups who preferred the old ways, who saw conquest and domination as natural and proper. Some have retreated to the outer rim. Others have tried to form new alliances based on the old principles. And what do we do about them? Asked Zarnthok. We wait, Sarah replied simply. We show them that cooperation works better than conquest. We demonstrate that mutual support creates more prosperity than exploitation. And when they're ready to listen, we'll be here to help them learn. This was perhaps the most difficult concept for the former powers to understand. Humanity could have easily crushed any resistance, eliminated any opposition. Instead, they chose to let others learn at their own pace, offering help without forcing it. Admiral Singh appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from Earth. Behind him, the great underground cities were being transformed again. No longer just preservation facilities for sleeping humans. They were becoming centers of learning and research, where species from across the galaxy came to study and collaborate. The Great Sleep is officially ended, he announced to the assembly. All human populations have been awakened and are ready to participate fully in galactic civilization. But we want to make something clear. We're not your new rulers. We're your partners. He paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of empires. 10,000 years ago, we chose to sleep because we realized that true strength isn't about being able to defeat everyone else. True strength is about knowing when not to use your power, about choosing to help rather than dominate. The assembly listened in respectful silence as Singh continued. We're awake now not because we want to rule the galaxy, but because the galaxy needs to remember what it forgot during our absence. That cooperation is stronger than competition, that diversity is more valuable than uniformity, that the strong should protect the weak, not exploit them. As the session ended, representatives began to file out, returning to their homeworlds to implement the new principles they had learned. The galaxy was far from perfect. There were still conflicts to resolve, injustices to address, and old wounds to heal. But for the first time in millennia, there was hope. Elder Counselor Vexhai approached Sarah as she gathered her materials. Dr. Chen Okafor, he said formally, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Will you sleep again? If the galaxy achieves the peace you seek, will humanity withdraw once more? Sarah considered the question carefully. It was one that many humans had been asking themselves as well. That depends, she said finally, on whether the galaxy still needs us to be awake. Our goal isn't to be in charge forever. Our goal is to help everyone learn to work together so well that our guidance isn't necessary. She smiled, and for a moment, Vexhai could see the weight of ages in her expression. We didn't want to wake up, she said softly. We had hoped that 10,000 years would be enough time for the galaxy to learn these lessons on its own. But perhaps some lessons can only be taught, not discovered. And if we learn them well enough, then maybe someday we can all sleep peacefully, knowing that when we wake up, we'll find a galaxy that has grown beyond the need for guardians. As Vexhai walked away, Sarah looked out through the great windows of the station at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human ships were helping to evacuate refugees from a war zone. Human scientists were sharing new medical techniques with species they had just met. Human diplomats were mediating disputes that had raged for centuries. The galaxy had awakened humanity because it had forgotten the lessons of peace. But perhaps, in teaching those lessons again, humanity had learned something too. That true strength wasn't about being able to sleep undisturbed. True strength was about being awake when others needed you most. And on that day, as the stars wheeled overhead and civilizations across the galaxy began to learn new ways of living together, humanity was finally, truly, awake.